Sean,
Anto,
welcome.
what's the crack?
Never thought we'd be sitting here.
Yeah, neither did I.
When I was swinging out of your wheel in a race, I didn't think we'd be sitting across each other for a Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You're looking lean.
Don't know necessarily if I'm feeling lean, but yeah.
It's the eating disorder, is it?
Yeah.
Good stuff, good stuff. I've got very little training done this year. It was actually just before you came in, I was scouting around the laptop. You know, when you're panicked looking for a few races that are going to motivate you. The Irish calendar is just not going to motivate me to do any training because I'm like, I've done that before. So I'm kind of looking around at some mad epic gravel races around Europe thinking, that could be the one. That could get me motivated. Would you be tempted to dip into the dark side?
Oh, I don't know. Not yet anyway.
Too young?
Yeah, too young. Yeah. I don't know. I think just for now, just trying to focus on the Irish stuff and trying to get a bit of Ross again. So.
What's it like getting back into a routine?
Like, do you mean specific to cycling or just in general? Like,
life, getting back to college, getting back to doing your laundry, making your meals, training, just the normal 9 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be surprised how much that stuff is hard. Like, you know, like when what happened, like the first thing that I was trying to do was try to keep my routine going, trying to like keep up with the things that I'm always doing, like be it like laundry, cooking, because such simple things like that can be really, really, really difficult. Like, and then like even on the bike, just trying to keep getting out on the bike, keep doing training, and even if it was the last thing you wanted to do, trying to get out was just trying to keep up with all that stuff. And like even going back to college was really, really hard too. But
because I remember we raced a crit past the spot where Gabby got knocked down. That can't have been more than a month afterwards.
Yeah, that was a few weeks because, yeah, like the race organisers contacted me and they asked me, like, would I be okay to have that race ran there? And like, sure, I mean, it's the last thing she'd want, wasn't it, to have a race cancelled, you know, because of her. So I said, it's fine.
Was it going through your head every lap? Because every single lap, I thought of it. Actually, I didn't think of it. I lie. Every single lap, I thought about were you thinking about it?
Yeah, of course I was, yeah. Yeah, but it's like every time I get on a bike, I think about it. So passing by that spot isn't anyway different. I mean, like when she first died, like I used to go back to that spot quite a lot. So it was kind of desensitized a lot for me. Like me and Gabby's friends would have just sat there for hours, and it was, you used it like a grave kind of thing, you know.
Bag of cans?
More like coffee and carrot cake. Yeah.
My relationship with cycling, it changes every year, really, when I don't even have traumatic events. Like if I even think back to why I started cycling, and I spent a little bit of time in the off season just being a little bit introspective, and I look back when I started cycling is this kind of escape. It gets you out of, you have this little zone that your parents say you're not allowed outside that, and then you get a bike and it's freedom, it's outside that, and then you start racing and it's like this peer comparison. We're racing each other. I'm like, oh, I'm better than Sean this week. He's better than me this week. And you're catting up, and then you go to college and it's something you commute home from parties or you avoid the bus. And then, I tried to make a living out of it for a while. It didn't work out very well, but it becomes a tool to make your living. But traumatic events must totally change that relationship with the bike again. What's your relationship like with the bike now?
It's hard, like it's really hard. Like, I think competitive cycling is hard enough anyway, especially when you're trying to balance like full-time jobs and all that sort of stuff with it. But like, when you get out on a bike now, like the symptoms of, like, I'd be suffering a lot with kind of PTSD and stuff. And the symptoms would be stronger on a bike. You know what I mean? You kind of have this sense that there's always something wrong, something's going to happen. Like even friends going out on a bike, you get that kind of just a little bit of worry that something's going to happen. And you'd get flashbacks like on the bike and stuff. Like I've had really bad, not even flashbacks, but like actual hallucinations, like
while
really,
you'd be a good man to be behind the bunch next year.
Hasn't happened in a race, look. Yeah, it's usually around cars, but yeah. Like it's crazy, it's hard, but
I think the part that maybe you're aware, maybe you're not, but you obviously had that, no one had a closer proximity to Gabby than you. But radiating out from that, then there's a group of people who knew her super well. There's a group of people who knew her quite well. And then there's a group of people like me who maybe only came in contact with her a handful of times and, would nod to say hello to her. But I think it impacts all of those groups all the way out. Like, my girlfriend Sarah is out cycling this morning and she said she's going to do 2.5 hours, but she's not back in after 3 hours. And straight away your head goes to that dark place when that wouldn't have happened a year ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are saying that to me. Like it's just, like you say, even people that didn't even know it, just came across the news article now are a lot more scared of their loved ones cycling on the road, because it's kind of one of those things that, like, you always know it's a risk, right? Like, don't you? Like, you was always something that'll cross your mind, like when you're out training, but you never think it's going to happen to you, do you? You never think like this, surely, like this, that's just what happens. That's what you read in the news, it's never going to happen. And then when it happens to someone that, like you say, it's completely different, then it just completely changes you.
I remember years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, myself and mutual friend of ours, Sean McKenna, were out training, and we were out in North County Dublin, not too far away from where Gabby was hit, near Blake's Cross. We were riding out towards Skerries doing an endurance ride, and we came across a crash on the road and someone was down. We went to see if we could help or not, and there was people already gathering around, and one of the lads said, "Look, it's under control. Look, you're not really doing that in here, only causing more of a scene. There's an ambulance on the way. One of the people here is a doctor, so it's under control as best it can be." And so we were like, okay, cool. So we cycled off, didn't think any more of it. You see crashes all the time, especially with beginner type cyclists.
Yeah.
So didn't really think anything of it. Went to Skerries, had a cup of coffee, riding home, and there's a police checkpoint and said, "No, you can't go back that way, the road's closed." And we were like, "Well, what's the road closed for?" And he said, "There's a cycling fatality." And that was the first time I'd ever come in contact with a cycling fatality. I didn't know this guy, but that was the first time I ever remember starting to feel unsafe on the bike. I think before that, maybe I was in a state of like ignorant bliss where, big data, people do die on the roads each year, but because I hadn't that proximity to it or that personal experience to it, I never actually thought it was a possibility.
It's like, you always hear, like, I'm sure you've been hit by cars plenty of times, like,
Only once.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You got a few bangs?
Just cycling through town and stuff, like just innocent light things, but like you never kind of think anything like really, you never think you're going to die from it, you know what I mean? And it's crazy. I remember, I don't know if you remember Sean Lynch as well in 2019 in the race in Wexford. Like, I unfortunately was witness to that too, and like, again, that sort of stuff really kind of haunts you as well. Like, and I'm sure he's missed now in the bunch as well. Like, death doesn't seem in the realm of possibilities that you think about as a cyclist. You think about, if I slip out on this kind of frosty weather, I could break a collarbone and I could be out for half the season. Or, I've had bad crashes. I love that saying. People go, "Oh, the slow ones are as bad as the fast ones." Like, as someone who's crashed at 2 kilometers an hour and someone who's crashed at 95 kilometers an hour, I can tell you the fast one's a lot worse. Yeah.
I had a traffic island coming off the Pyrenees when I was racing out in France at about 95 kilometers an hour. And I had enough time going through the air to actually think about how sore it was going to be hitting the ground. I remember going through the air going, this is going to be bad. And I hit the ground, and even on the ground going to move and thinking, oh no, I'm paralysed.
Yeah.
And thinking, you got paralysed in a bike race, you absolute idiot. But then the relief that, there's no serious, some broken bones, but no serious legacy injuries. But that almost seems like we do consent to that level of accident happens, especially as bike racers. And, I know training crashes like that are quite rare, thankfully. But in my head, I've never thought that I consent to any sort of contact with cars. That's been a line that I've never broached.
It's funny, like, you go out for your session and like, I think it's fair to say, like, maybe not now, but you were once an athlete on the bike.
I'm going to rip you up this season.
Well, like, Gabby was an athlete, you know what I mean? She was top of the game. And every time she went out on the bike, it was, oh, what's my heart rate? What are my intervals? What am I this? Never, like you say, did it cross her mind that, oh, like, I could be hit by a car today, you know what I mean? It's crazy, and I think a lot of people's minds have changed now because of that.
How has the tragedy changed or reshaped your outlook on life?
I mean, there's a lot of things that change. It's nothing even to do with the fact that the way she died, but just when someone dies like that, just changes your whole view on things, you know.
Like, what's a stage of grief? How does that work?
Well, like they say, you go through all sorts of things. Like I think it's like denial, anger, depression, but like you just seem to kind of have them all like at once.
You can have them all in one day, like.
Yeah, like you can have them all in one day. Like it's, you know, sometimes I've been for a long time thinking like, is life even worth living, you know, with all this? But then you kind of come out of it and you kind of go, maybe it is worth living, and maybe you need to appreciate smaller things. Like, and you never know when your time is going to come, and you realize like all the things that you would have been just stressing about, little things like fucking staying a little bit later and work and all this sort of these stupid little things we stress over, like traffic and stuff. It all just doesn't matter, does it? Like, you know, at the end of the day, we're gone, and we're all here for such a short time. So we may as well just do things that we enjoy. And
I remember talking to a friend about this recently who'd suffered a tragedy in his family, and he had a quote that said, like, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And we can get so hung up on thinking about, you know, I need a nicer car, I need a mortgage, the cost of living crisis. But really, none of it matters. Like, it's have a laugh, spend time with some good people, and we don't know how long we're here for.
Exactly. And it's something that you always kind of think like that. It's kind of like, you know, getting hit by a car. It's like, you never think, you know, tomorrow, like you never know tomorrow is going to be your last day, and then eventually it is. And that's something that we just never accept. I think it's too uncomfortable, and even the idea of death is so uncomfortable to even think of. Like it's knocking on the door for us all at some point, isn't it? So, yeah.
I read a lot of Stoic philosophy, and one of the kind of central tenets of Stoic philosophy is this idea of memento mori, and they use a lot of symbolism around skulls and deaths. That's very prevalent, and people from the outside look at it and say, oh, that's so morbid. But the idea of memento mori is we will die. That's what it means. And that's not in some sort of fatalistic, oh, what's the point, we will die. It's more in a enjoy your life, because you never know. There's a last time meditation, which I try and do quite a bit. And it's like, imagine that today was my last ever bike ride. You know, how would I savor getting kitted that morning? Would I do oh my God, I have to go out again on the bike? Or would I actually cherish that getting kitted? You can extend that to, you know, one of your good training partners, one of your friends, one of your family. If it was the last chance you ever got to ride with them, what would you say to them? What stories would you tell? You know, how would you share those moments? Because you experienced your last ever ride with Gabby, but other people listening to the podcast, they also will experience a last day, a last ride, a last hour with their loved ones. We just don't know when, but we definitely know there's going to be a last day.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I can tell you one thing for sure. There's the most painful thing you'll ever do is wanting to tell someone that you love them and that you're just staring to the empty side of a bed. Do you know what I mean? And I'll tell you, that is the most deepest pain you'll ever feel, when they're just gone like that, you know. And I guess that's what's kind of shaped my thinking. I mean, like, you know, it's kind of like I found someone that I couldn't live without, and now I have to live without them, you know. And it's like, that just changes your mindset on things, you know.
It was all your chats and talks with Gabby around planning for the future. Were you at that stage of the relationship?
Yeah, it would have been, yeah. Like, I'm studying physiotherapy now. She had a nice, stable job in Microsoft, and yeah, it was just about getting me qualified and then saving up. And she actually wanted to move to Kilkenny. She fell in love with it after Rosnaman, believe it or not. I think she only rode there in the rain, so I'm not quite sure how she fell in love with it. But yeah, I think that was kind of her spot she wanted to go to.
We talked earlier in the week, and we were saying, you know, is it worth doing this podcast? And I think we were saying back and forth that I think if one person listening to this podcast changes their driving behavior, or if they share it with someone in their club, or they share it with someone in their family, and they change their driving behavior, then I was like, it's a massive success, because the roads are dangerous, and it's, from what I can see, largely driver inattention. You can put speed, phones, reckless driving all into that same bucket of inattention.
Like, I was interested to talk to you because, like, I've done a few of these like podcasts now, and I've never really done it with another cyclist, you know. And it's kind of like people are asking me questions about what I think on the road, but like, you know what the roads are like. you've been on the roads longer than me. Like, you know, well, like maybe do you agree that are they getting worse? Do you think they're getting worse?
I think when I started cycling, I'm cycling since I was in second year. We went to the same university, second year in UCD. So I'm cycling, I don't know, I can do the maths on that, 12, 13 years. And at the time, there was very few people cycling. I went into UCD Cycling Club and there wasn't a road section of that. There was no one there. I was the first person doing road and we were building the club. And at the time, you'd go out on the road and cars would be a little bit shocked to see it because we obviously missed that, like Stephen Roach, Sean Kelly boom, where everyone talked about cycling. This was in an era where there wasn't really. Nicholas Roach was kind of performing, but he wasn't very successful. Sorry, Nico. He wasn't super successful. So there wasn't a lot of public awareness. So going out on the roads, I always thought, it's a little bit dangerous, but it's just because cars don't really know how to treat bikes. It's like if you see one of those lads on the one wheel things now and they're dressed in helmets and they look like they're from the future and you're kind of like, how do I go around this lad? Like, how much space do I need to give him? You're a little bit unsure. And that's how I viewed cars back then. And I had this, in retrospect, what was a naive view about how this was going to evolve. I thought when more people start cycling, we're going to have a critical mass on the roads and everybody is going to know somebody who cycles. So cars would be super respectful of cyclists on the road, because that's what I'd seen in Holland, in Belgium, anytime I'd gone away. I actually think it's gone completely the opposite way. I think there's so many cyclists on the road now, you know, some good, some bad, but drivers all seem to have a story about a cyclist, you know, taking up the whole road, or a cyclist running a red light dangerously, or nearly hitting a pedestrian. And there's such a hate for cyclists among drivers. They've almost dehumanized them. Like, I've seen memes with, I actually sent someone a message on Facebook going, can you take that down? It's like, it was a meme about how he hit someone in his car and he looked back and it was only a cyclist. And I was like, the bit that people miss is like their husbands, their fathers, their sons, their daughters. They're not cyclists. So it's got so much worse, I think. I, for the first time, started training with a rear light this year.
Yeah, like it's, I think the thing that's gotten worse is I just think that aggression that you get, that real kind of, you know, like people just like threatening you with their car almost, like they're overtaking you closely and then just cutting in front of you, and you just just shouting abuse out the window, beeping at you. It's like they're really just trying to get on your nerves and get at you, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, like I say, threaten you, you know what I mean? It's scary, like it's really scary because you come into contact with any sort of car.
What a catch. Roadman, you know how serious I take my goal setting, and I know how serious you take it too. So whether you're chasing fitness or lifestyle goals and you're looking for a powerful ally to support you on this journey, look no further than Huel. Huel has become my secret weapon for when I don't have time to prepare a balanced meal. It means I get the nutrition I need without sacrificing time or taste. Plus, it stops me from reaching for the takeaway menu. I always throw a bottle of this banana into my backpack when I'm heading into the city, and it stops me eating junk convenience foods that don't support my training goals. It's handy, it's nutritious, it's 22 grams of protein. It's perfect for athletes that don't have time to cook or prepare food before a training session. It's convenient, nutritious fuel at your fingertips, ensuring you hit your daily fueling needs. Huel Ready To Drink has over 26 essential vitamins and minerals in every bottle, making sure you get 175 health benefits. Plus, it's made from amazing natural ingredients like sunflower seed, coconut, and more. And the best part, 8 mouth-watering flavors. My favorite's the banana. That's what's in my backpack at the moment. You can get Huel direct to your home by going to huel.com/roadman. That's Huel, HUEL.com/roadman.
Like you're the one that's going to come off worse than that.
I was coming down through a local training road here. Won't make any sense to international listeners, but down near Baldoyle, a training road I'd go on all the time. And a few months ago, towards the tail end of the summer, and a car came past, and he came past so fast and close that he hit my knuckles with his wing mirror. And I was actually I was training on my own. I was super chill. I was listening to Coldplay or something. And so I cruised up. I caught him in a little bit of traffic. I cruised up and I wasn't aggressive at all. I like tapped on the window and I was like, oh, hey man, you were super close to me there. I was like, a little bit more room. Because, you know, if that was maybe an inexperienced rider, they could have went down and done some damage. Like I was thinking about if Sarah got a pass that close, she'd probably go down.
Yeah.
And he said, next time I won't miss. And I was like, whoa. Like, how does somebody that's a normal functioning citizen in society, has a car, insurance, able to dress himself and go about his day, how does he get into the car and become a murderer? I don't get that.
Like these people, like if you met him in the street, like he probably wouldn't even say anything. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just, they're so hard when they're in their cars. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's so scary. Like, and I always think like the scariest place for any cyclist to look at is the kind of comment section on any of these online posts you see about cycling safety, or, you know, like you might see the RSA do a post promote 1.5 meters. If you ever go and read the comments on that, like it's scary that these people that typing these things are also driving on the roads. And like, even I put out a tweet before, and even like people obviously oblivious to my whole situation, but writing comments like, you know, cyclists are wankers, that's the problem, and all this sort of horrible stuff. And like, you don't want to accept your own responsibility. These kind of horrible things. It's just pure hatred, isn't it? Like
I've tried reasoning on occasion with, I try not get involved, because I typically find that if you go out the door and you're in that mentality that I'm going to get involved in trouble, you're going to find trouble on the roads because it's so frequent. So I try not to get involved, but I think we were all a bit twitchy for the couple of months after Gabby passed, and everyone was reacting to stuff. And I remember talking to and trying to reason with one driver, going like, you've nearly killed me. And he's like, but you're two abreast. And I was like, okay, well, let's run that argument. Firstly, let's park the fact that I'm legally entitled to be two abreast, because it's a subjective standard. You can be two abreast unless it's unsafe to do so. But the unsafe to do so is subjective, not objective. So objective meaning he can't decide if it's unsafe to do so. I, as the cyclist, have to decide. So I tried to explain to him, okay, fine, we're two abreast, grand. We're in the wrong. Does it mean I should die? And it was just a blank look on his face. He couldn't, you know, process that the sentence he was dishing out for us being two abreast was a death sentence. And that sentence does not fit that crime.
No, it's crazy. And like the analogy I like to use is like, you know, these people who are so stressed about their time when they're going to their destination that they need to be so precise to the second, but yet like they'll walk into their local coffee shop and there'll be 2 extra people in the queue, and that'll be an extra 2 minutes on their day, where versus, you know, 10, 20 seconds a cyclist adds on, and they're not going to go cutting in front of those people and threatening to kill those people in the coffee shop queue because they've delayed their day by 2 minutes. You know what I mean? It's just this one, as soon as we're in Lycra and have our helmets on, they have this just hatred towards us, isn't it?
Like, I try to make an argument if it's anything where, you know, for a long time, vaccines were a big hot topic among athletes. You know, is it going to lead to some sort of myocarditis or not? And no matter what my opinion is on something, whether it's, say, pro-vax or anti-vax, I try and flip sides and go, well, can I make an argument for the opposing viewpoint to try and understand what the pain points here might be? And I tried to flip into the driver's seat. There was a nice little analogy. I tried to flip into the driver's seat a couple of times in my head and think, well, how can I rationalize that? How can I rationalize hitting somebody or bringing somebody down because they're two abreast or because they're slowing me up? And I just can't.
Yeah, I can't say I can either.
I can't find anything from it.
I mean, like, you know, you can, like, you've been in the car, I'm sure, where like you've been behind cyclists and like it's a slight inconvenience if you're in a rush, but it's, maybe we're just more level-headed because we're cyclists and we know that, like, you know, like they're just out for a spin. Like, you know, okay, I'm now going to be 20 seconds later to where I was going to be, but like I'm still going to get there. You know what I mean? And if I can be patient, I'll get there, and then they'll get to their destination too. You know.
Well, the wild thing is with the close passes. I run a group ride on a Saturday morning, which is very mixed abilities, from, you know, some riders that are category 1, some riders all the way down to doing their first sportifs this year. So very, very mixed ability. And I see the mixed ability people, and they're not wheels I would ride too close to because they're very inexperienced. Like when we started, you don't really know what you're doing. They're not bad. They're just at the start of that progression curve. So they are not very good at holding consistently straight lines. And I always worry that one of them is going to get close past at a time where they look over their shoulder and they veer 2 foot to the left, and that's gone. It's game over. And this is not a pie in the sky thing. There's a percentage chance that's going to happen on every beginner group spin anywhere in the world.
Yeah. And like, sometimes I even think, like, is there even any point, like me doing this podcast and stuff? Because, like, am I even going to be able to change anything? Like, you know, before this happened to me, no one would ever listen to me. You know, no one, I'm just a stupid cyclist, like, whatever. Like, but I had to take the most unfortunate of circumstances for people who, I get a lot of messages from people who don't know me and don't know Gabby, but friend of a friend or whatever, and they say, oh, I heard your thing and I'm going to take consideration with driving. It was very good, whatever. But, like, the mentality seems so fixed and horrible from drivers. Sometimes I think, is there even any point fighting it? And then I even think, like, is there even any point just cycling at all? Do you know what I mean? It is a really, really scary place. And, like, if I had kids, I'm not sure I'd be wanting them to go out on a bike. I don't know.
I talk with these friends who are, you know, cyclists and ex-pros all the time now. It's like, would you put your kids into cycling's a sport? Look, I absolutely love it. It's given me so much. You know, I've made amazing friends, traveled the world with it. But it's so dangerous at the moment out there, that risk to reward. I wonder, would we be better off, you know, taking up mountain biking, or, you know, taking up running or CrossFit or something?
Yeah, it's hard to say unless it comes up, but don't think I would be happy if I had kids and they're cycling.
Do you mind taking me back to the day it happened? Because I'm assuming it started out like any Saturday morning, you're going for a group ride or a coffee spin, and we talked about that last time, meditation. I'm guessing there's no appreciation of taking in those things. You're probably running a million scenarios in your head ever since, saying, I wish I'd done this different. I wish I said that.
I have no idea. Yeah.
What was that day like?
It was actually a lovely day.
Today's show sponsor is Pillar. Well, we're all familiar with the importance of electrolytes and carbohydrates and their role in our race preparation. Pillar is taking a completely different route. It focuses on micronutrition, ensuring we're ready to perform even before we hit the start line. It's all about promoting a good night's sleep, facilitating effective recovery, and replenishing those crucial micronutrients so you can perform at your very, very best. I've been running my own personal little experiment over the past month, and I've been incorporating Pillar's triple magnesium supplement into my evening routine. I take it about 30 minutes before bed, and the results I've seen are absolutely remarkable. The improvement in sleep quality, about 10% I've seen. I've been tracking my sleep with my Whoop device, and the results are there in absolute black and white. I've given this to friends, they've tested it, and they've all experienced the same results. I wake up feeling refreshed, having had a deep restorative sleep, so I'm ready to attack work, training, and life the next day. But don't just take my word for it. The data from your fitness tracker will tell you the story. So if you're ready to elevate your performance and your sleep quality like me, just go ahead and give Pillar a try. Head to pillarperformance.shop and use the code ROADMAN on your local website for 15% off your first order. If you're watching this in the US, head over to thefeed.com/pillar and use the code ROADMAN for 15% off that first order as well. Now let's get back to the show.
We were just after doing the Ross, and it was like a week after, like 5 days after the Ross finished, and just out for a spin. We were just gonna go for coffee, sit outside. It was really sunny. It was just a really nice day. It was a Saturday morning, and I actually just stopped on the road. I stopped for a piss on the road. Just
you and Gabby out training?
Yeah. And she just went on ahead, and I was catching back up to her. And I turned the corner. You know what the road is. So
yeah.
We were going like north. We were going south to north on the road, and I just saw a car with completely big smash in the front of it. The windscreen completely smashed, and I saw her bike then. Before I even saw her bike, I just thought, this is a car crash. Do you know what I mean? It didn't look like a bike crash. It didn't look like someone tapped the bike. You know, it looked like a car crash. And and I saw her bike, and then I clicked then. I was like, oh no, shit, this isn't a car crash. Like, she's in this crash. And but the scary thing was, like, she was nowhere to be seen. You know, like, you know, normally like people are just lying with their bike or whatever, clipped in it even. She was nowhere. And like she was far from her bike, you know. She was a good bit from the bike, and it took me a while before I even found her. Like, you know, I was calling her name and no answer, and obviously that was really horrible. Like, and I eventually just saw her. She was upside down and in the ditch, and really horrible injuries.
Because is it even hard to process at that time? Because we talked about the range of possibilities on a training spin, and we calibrate these as cyclists subconsciously all the time. If, you know, me and you were going for a bunch sprint in the Ross, you're going into that with an awareness that I could get badly injured if this goes wrong. Likewise, on a training spin, you kind of have a different set of circumstances which you think are possible. When you're on a coffee spin, the set of circumstances that you think might potentially happen, they're very, very narrow. You don't even anticipate, you know, a broken chain and going over the bars. Was it hard to initially process this and go, this is a bad accident, and reconcile that with, I never imagined there could be a bad accident on this spin?
Well, like, I think I panicked, not even panicked, but I think I just went into pure crisis mode, and it was just absolutely like, what can I do now to save her? Like, you know, because it still even took me a while before I even went into that mode, because I didn't even realize she was dead initially, you know. Like, I first saw her and picked up her hand, and I just went to hold her hand, you know, like, and just comfort her and say,
You knew instantly this is bad.
Well, not until I picked up the hand, and it was really floppy, you know, and I just checked for a pulse, and no pulse in the wrist and no pulse on her neck, and you kind of look at her then and you're like, fuck, this is not good. And it's almost like you get that real sinking moment, like, and it's like I'll never forget that, you know. Just started doing CPR to her chest. Like, I just didn't know no idea what training did you have for those sorts of situations, like, and I just didn't know what to do, so I did that. And, you know, it was just like the most like violent kind of injuries that she had, like, you know, severed abdomen and stuff, and all her skin was ripped off and off her chest, and it was horrible, like absolutely horrible. And you're there like down in the deep of the ditch, like pumping CPR while you're waiting for the ambulance to come, and people went and got a defibrillator. Like, a few people passed by, like there's a couple of cyclists and drivers that passed by, and they helped and got a defibrillator. We set it up, but when we went to stick it on her, like, there was so much skin lost, like on her top of her ribs. There was just nowhere you could even stick a patch. Like, she was that bad, like. And it was when we couldn't stick the defibrillator patch on that the ambulance hadn't even come at this point.
Because it's kind of out there. I don't even, where's the closest ambulance or the closest hospital to that?
I actually don't even know which one came. I think they sent them from a few different locations, but in a bit in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, I just crawled out the ditch, like, and just fell on the ground and just crying, just in shock, like, you know what I mean? Like, what the hell did you do? Like,
that's it. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, like, and it's so weird because, like, there's some parts of that event that I can't remember at all, but yet there's some parts that are so vivid in my memory, you know. And I guess just like I'll never forget that. Like, and I guess happened. That's a lot of my problems, is like that real PTSD of the feeling of like pumping her chest and stuff, and that like sound of it, and just, yeah, it was, yeah.
And did you wait there? Like, are you still trying to resuscitate her till the ambulance comes?
No, I when we couldn't stick the defibrillator patch, I couldn't. I had no more energy left to give, and I knew it was, you know, like, I think when you break down her injuries, there was nothing like we could have done at all. And one of the other passerbys stepped in for me and did the CPR until the ambulance came. But I was just like lying on the ground and just just waited for them to come.
Did you go in the ambulance?
No, my dad came down.
So it was a long time passing here that you were on the side of the road.
Oh, like hours, yeah. Like, because then the guards came, and then I had to like give all her name and address and stuff, and then I had to do the identification of the body and stuff, because they wanted to save me having to go down to identify it later that evening. So they said if I was happy to do it there, so I identified it there. And yeah, I was there for a good while they were just, I mean, I couldn't move. I was in shock. Like, I just couldn't speak or move or, you know.
'Cause I remember we've our Saturday group spin, which goes to the coffee shop, which I guess you guys were going to that day, the little coffee hut in Old Town, which is, only a couple of kilometers away from the site. And I remember getting in from that coffee ride and having a text off a friend that a cyclist had died out that direction. And immediately I was just like, obviously every life is equal, but I was like, I hope it's not someone I know, because they're training roads that like we use, and a lot of the local cyclists in the North Dublin community use those training roads, and instantly it's like, I hope that's not someone I know. And then later on that evening I got a text from another friend saying it's Sean's girlfriend Gabby, and I was like, oh my God, I actually can't believe it, because there was another death not recently, but around the same time that I heard about, and every death is tragic, but I was able to compartmentalize that other cycling debt, because I was able to look at it and say, okay, he was quite an inexperienced bike handler, and it was we call it in cycling pilot error. There was a little bit of mismanagement of his bike that resulted in him having the accident, and then the consequences were tragic. But with Gabby, none of us could do that, because it was like, well, she's won the National League, she's the best female rider in the country for the last 12 months. Her bike handling is at least as good as mine, if not better. So any situation that resulted in her getting injured that bad could have happened to me, and could have happened to anyone else I love.
Yeah, like, and she was so safe on the roads as well. Like, it's like out of anyone that, we've all gone down hills fast and so on, but she was so safe. Like, there's no one, she really didn't deserve her to happen to her at all. Like,
is this stuff helping? Is talking about it helping?
I mean, it's hard to know. It's nice to think that maybe I'm helping. Like, I feel like I have a voice now that people will listen to, and
I don't even mean it's helping the community. I think undoubtedly it's having a huge impact, bigger than on road safety, but is it making it harder on you?
I don't know really. Like, it's probably just hard anyway, so I may as well, like I'm going to be sad anyway, so like I may as well talk about it, like I'm doing lots of counselling and stuff to try to desensitize to it and get rid of all the PTSD stuff, and then also help me with like the real kind of grief and depression side of things. Like,
because they're two different things, aren't they? Yeah. So I've no idea. I'm sorry, I'm super naive on this. What's the difference between PTSD and the normal grief that you go through after a bereavement?
Well, like, grief would be like someone just died in their sleep, so that's like just sad, just missing someone. You know what I mean? Like all the normal things, and I'm sure many people listening will have lost someone they absolutely love, and like, my heart goes out to them, because it's an absolutely horrible place to be in, especially if it's someone you love so deeply, like a partner. Like, that's, as you know, like, that's an extension of yourself, isn't it? Like, that's the closest person to you. It's the person you share the most intimate moments with, and you have all your plans, and you do everything, every decision you make is with them, and then all of a sudden, just like that, it's all over. So you have that, and then the PTSD. I mean, I guess the best way to describe it is, if you saw anyone in the ditch like that day, it didn't have to be someone you saw a body, and
it's like a soldier coming back from battle.
Basically saying things like, yeah, like, like that whole thing of like, blood all over you, like, and seeing, like, you know what I mean, like her, like, she had horrible injuries. I don't even want to say it, like, it's horrible stuff that were, her body just cut open in all sorts of places, and it was like, that would mess you up if you saw anyone like that. And but then when you make it the person you love the most, it's pretty hard. I'm not going to lie.
How do you go about managing that perfect storm?
I don't know. I've probably not done it the most healthy of ways. I mean, like, there's been friends I've leaned on a lot. There's my family are great, but it's, I guess, just kind of talking about it and trying to even physical exercise. Like, I've been cycling, not so much, more running, gym, going to the gym and stuff, but just kind of doing exercise and that, but just staying close with friends. And it's not always been easy, but you just kind of have to keep socializing, keep yourself busy, but not be too busy, because you have to let yourself feel things. You have to let the tears come out. I don't think you can avoid this. You just have to go through it, But like, I mean, like, I've I developed a quite unhealthy relationship with drink and other substances, and I've kind of, you'd be drinking alone and stuff, and that's horrible.
Just to numb it, or is it to forget it?
To numb it. You're in so much pain. And the pain is physical. It's like you're there. It's like my hands are painful. My face is painful, and it's like you're in college, and it's all just getting a bit too much, and you just feel you need to escape the world a little bit, and you do that. But I'm out the other end of that, thankfully now. But
what's the role of friends in this? Is it difficult for them to know how to interact with you? Or is that maybe just the outer layer of acquaintances rather than your good friends?
Well, I've been a huge pain in the arse. I've just been I get a lot of people who are sending me really nice texts, and I absolutely love that because it's just nice to know they're thinking of me. But then there's friends that will just come and meet me, and even I'll say, I don't want to meet you. They'll just come and they'll be like, all right, we'll sit in silence if you don't want to talk, and I think that's just really nice. And, they say, oh, I've booked dinner at this place at 6 o'clock for X, Y, and Z, we'll all be there. You can come, and all those things are really, really helpful. And then the cycling friends would be bringing me out on the bike, and they're patient with me and encouraging me to keep cycling. And because if I lost cycling, I don't know where I'd be. I kind of need to keep that going, and they're really good for that. But yeah, and then I've gone a lot closer to some people as well, which is really nice. And I guess a lot of people are sharing the grief with me too. A lot of her friends are really, really upset and miss her every day, and a lot of them can't even hear me talk about the day because it's too triggering for them. And she's missed by a lot of people, and it's nice to kind of share that with them.
I remember we went for a brew a couple of months ago, and it was good fun, but it's the first time we'd met probably and arranged to meet outside of cycling kit ever. Yeah. It was the first time in Civvies. I didn't even know you owned jeans and t-shirts. I thought you only owned cycling kit. Yeah. But I was definitely left after the conversation wondering, have I helped at all there, or have I made this lad's problems worse? And I would say a lot of people are kind of taking a back seat, and they want to chat to you more about it, and they want to offer help, or they want to get involved in stuff that you're now starting to advocate for, like cycling safety. But they're maybe just a little bit scared to, how do you have this conversation? Because awkward conversations are hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And even when we met, that was I was in a really bad place then. I was in a really bad place. I'm better, I think, now. But I definitely leaned on a lot of people to take me out of there. But yeah, I guess it's something that's hard. I think even people are afraid to talk to me, even bring her name up. But I think anyone that's lost someone really close will know that there's nothing I'd love more than to talk about her, because when someone dies, that's all you have is just memories, and talking about them, you kind of feel connected with them again. So I'd sit here and talk about her all day.
How do you think we could improve road safety?
That's such a good question. And I think it has to come from the human aspect of it, of behind drivers, because I don't know if you agree, but I think that when one day, hopefully soon, we have self-driving cars, there probably will be no more accidents on the roads, because they'll be all controlled by machines. They'll be set up they'll know each other are coming, and it'll be a bit of a utopian world, but probably will happen one day, self-driving cars. And I think then cyclists will stop getting killed. And does that kind of then answer, how do we get there then today with humans driving the cars? And I guess it is just, I think people don't think that, they don't really realize they're driving a weapon, do they?
No.
And even anyone that's ever killed anyone on the road has never set out to do that day. Do you know what I mean? And probably their lives are all changed forever as well. And I think people just need to realize how they're holding a gun, you know what I mean? And they have their finger on the trigger. And it's a matter of if they decide to shoot it or not. Do you know what I mean? And I think people just don't fully realize the responsibility they have when they're behind the car. They just think oh, it's, you know what I mean? It's a mode of transport. It is a mode of transport. But in some utopian society, would we have everyone who's training to drive have to do some mandatory 20 hours of cycling on the roads.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not a bad idea.
that would be very good. I mean, if we could do that. But I don't think you're going to get all sorts of objections to that. Like, but
there's a system same in Northern Ireland, which is the best system I've seen anywhere in the world. I'm not sure if they rolled it out beyond the pilot, but basically you have a police officer who is a cyclist who dresses up in cycling kit and goes out training all day. And when he gets a close pass, he has a GoPro or some similar camera equipment on his bike, and he radios ahead to, if they work in a tandem, so it's him and a motorbike, he radios ahead with a motorbike to the motorbike, sends across the footage, motorbike pulls up the car, is like, you close past, here's the footage, how do you plead to it? Guilty, on the spot, fine for it. And if there's enough of those out there, I feel like motorists will go, okay, there's a chance he's a police officer. But I think it's, at scale, it's got to be mentality shifts. And some of I even hear politicians and stuff talking about accidents, and they'd be like, was he wearing a helmet? And it's like, helmet's a mitigation of damage. Helmet's assuming that we're going to get hit. Now, how can we prevent the damage being really bad when we get hit? Like, I've gone into hospitals with broken collarbones, and they're like, were you wearing a helmet? I was like, it's my collarbone that's broke. We're obsessed with this helmet, and I think it's, people view it as, motorists view it as this bubble of safety around cyclists. I can close past him because he's wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
There's a study out of Australia to show that when cyclists weren't wearing helmets, motorists weren't passing them as close.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Like,
there probably wasn't even a scratch on Gabby's helmet. You know what I mean? It was probably one of those things. Like, it's like I think it's some sort of shield we have, isn't it?
Yeah. We're pushing this green agenda here in Ireland and, you know, around the world a lot with trying to get carbon neutral, and because of that, a lot of governments are putting money into cycling infrastructure, and that's a little bit of a bugbear for me as well. I'd love to hear what you think on this one, because there's cycling tracks that are costing tens of millions going in all around here right now, and they are brilliant, but I'm like, could we take 10% of that, 20% of that expenditure and actually use it to try and create a mentality shift? There was a campaign I seen run in Canada when I was living out there a few years ago, and it was on in the cinema before movies. And it was like, this girl would be like, hi, I'm Cynthia. I'm a mother of 3 children and I'm a cyclist. It's like, hi, I'm Ed. I'm your postman. I deliver your post every morning. You're super friendly to me every morning. I'm also a cyclist. And it's trying to because they've dehumanized cyclists. They're a cyclist on the road. They're an obstacle, an inconvenience. But it's trying to get back to going, actually, no, they're people. It wasn't a cyclist that got hit and killed. It was Gabby. It was Sean's girlfriend. It was, someone's daughter. It was someone's friend.
Yeah, like, I do think that would be like, I don't know how we do that though. Do you know what I mean? But I think you're right. Like, as in, no one wants to, like, if someone actually, was in their car and they actually stop for a second and go like, oh, they see a cyclist and they think, actually, no, that's not a cyclist. Like, that's someone, like you say, someone's daughter, someone's friend. Like, I don't, like, there's no way they can have aggression towards them. Like, I don't think so anyway. So, like, how do we get that into their minds? Like, like, do people need to hear me talk? Do people need to, like, are ads the right thing? Like, even that, like, police thing in Northern Ireland, like, part of that makes me think, like, is that just going to create even more hatred and friction between cyclists? Because people are just going to hate cyclists even more. So, like, I just think we need to get that hate out of the...
It's the us versus them, isn't it?
Yeah. But how do we do that? I don't know.
And I've seen it going the other way. I often think that I look to North America for trends, because when I was living out there racing, I seen a lot of stuff that they were doing 7-8 years ago. We pick it up 7 or 8 years later, be it fashion trends like Canada Goose, be it coffee trends or whatever. And I'm seeing the aggression trend coming here, like, to the point that I'd have teammates in the US and they'd be riding with like a pocket full of quarters to throw at cars in traffic to damage the paintwork.
It's crazy.
And it just keeps building on that us versus them.
But that's doing no good for the relationship between cyclists and drivers either. Like, I think we're often like you said there, you had a good interaction with a driver where you kind of kindly stopped and politely said, hey, you didn't give me enough room there. But I think, like, sometimes cyclists aren't doing us any favors, and like, they, effing and blinding and just going swerving, and maybe sometimes it is better to single out and let a car pass and just give them a wave, and then that is a positive interaction, you know what I mean? But some cyclists and people even I go out with, where, like, they just get angry with cars, and I'm just like, man, that's doing no favors for this relationship that we're trying to build here. Like, you know.
Well, one of my ones on that is people that bang on the side of cars or tap on the side of cars going through. Like, you know, obviously I've been riding the bike a long time and I've tapped on the side of a lot of cars in my time, you know, with different degrees of ferocity in it. It has never helped the situation. It aggravates 100% of the time. When you hit someone's car, they're shocked and they respond with aggression every time. But I see so many riders doing it. Oh, give us some space and tap on the car. And it's creating barriers, not bridges.
And then that driver, the next time they see a cyclist, will have that in the back of their head. And then that cyclist will just be innocent. They just then do something to them, you know. So
almost there's a concept in law called cumulative provocation, and it came from a housewife that was maybe the guy came home from work and he'd had a few drinks after work and he hit her a couple of slaps. And this happens week after week, month after month, year after year. And eventually he comes home from work and he hits her a couple of slaps and she blows his brains out. And then she goes to court, and self-defense isn't really a defense there, because like you were only slapped and you shot someone. That, you know, that's not proportionate. There's no proportionality there. And that's why this battered wife or cumulative provocation came up. And I often think about the relationship with cyclists and drivers on both sides is this. It's a cumulative provocation, because sometimes you will react. But when you react, it's not because someone close past you. It's because you've been close past hundreds of times and you've seen consequences like you've seen, and that's why you react. But it's the same the other way around for drivers, because as you rightly said, they're having loads of these like little mini confrontations with cyclists on the road, and they're remembering it the next time they see a cyclist.
And like, I think it's like a certain cohort of people as well that are typically the worst for it as well. Like, you know, like people even like when they're driving their Range Rovers and stuff, like those kind of people seem to be the really aggressive ones. Like, I just hate cyclists, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, I don't know, like how do you change that mentality? Like, you know, yeah, I don't know the answer to it.
What do you think Gabby would have wanted you to do?
In relation to what exactly?
In relation to, you said you've had dark thoughts and you've thought about ending it all. Now you've gone a road where you're speaking on podcasts and you're becoming an advocate for road safety. What would she be whispering in your ear?
She'd probably tell me I'm saying stupid things on the podcast and stuff. But I don't know. I guess would she be happy that like I'm trying to make something come of this horrible death? Like, that it's not just like, I sort of think like when I'm deciding, like, you know, when people ask me to come on things and do interviews or whatever, and I'm just like deciding like if I want to do it, I think like, yeah, I could just sit here and do nothing, you know, and I could just, you know, she died and that's it, and I could just try to fix myself. But I had this opportunity to be able to maybe change other people and use the worst thing that could have ever happened to her and me into something, not into something positive, but you know what I mean, get something positive out of it. And if it stops someone else going through what I'm going through, then I guess it'd be worth it, and she'd be happy that I'm doing that. She'd just be happy that I'm still here, I guess.
Yeah, I think me, like much of the Irish cycling community, we've interacted with you occasionally through the years at races, training spins, whatever. And I'm watching you from the outside in. I'm watching you change, and you're becoming different. You're going from a young lad to becoming a man. You're becoming resilient, articulate. And honestly, Sean, you are fast becoming like the best advocate we have for road safety.
Yeah, well, that's a nice compliment to get, so I appreciate it. But I feel like I've been taught a whole lifetime's worth of lessons and I'm only 25, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've gone through a whole life of, you know, learning about life. And yeah, I mean, if I can keep on, like, it is hard, John, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, it is hard coming in and talking about it. And, you know, some days you just want to stay in your bed and do nothing. But like I said, if I can, like, if someone listens to this and it slows them down, or like, you know, even something that I was working out with, another thing I did that got like 150,000 views, and you kind of work it out, you know, roughly calculating between accounting for like international listeners and people that don't drive and stuff. But like, that's roughly like 1 in 40 drivers have heard that, have heard me speak. And when you're out training, it doesn't take you very long to pass 40 cars. And then that, when you think about that, it's like 1 in 40 people that have passed me on my spin today have heard me speak. It's kind of like, that's pretty good, you know. And if I can make that even more, then that's even better.
Sean, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Anton.
So if you like this video, click on this one. I think you'll like that too. And subscribe to the channel because we've loads more amazing content coming up. And it's not as windy.